Alright, hey guys, and welcome back. It's been a while. I was away for a few days. So I did kind of accidentally say that I'm gonna, kind of make a video about Age of Ultron and show that it could possibly be better than Endgame. And well, I probably should not be taking that big of a leap, but I am just going to, in hopes of, better or worse. So if this is your first time here, well, welcome, 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 welcome. And we are going to start off with the title, which is that The Age of Ultron is not the worst Avengers film. Because guess what? Now it's Endgame. So this kind of makes Ultron the third, right, from the top. So it's probably the second worst, but it's not the worst. And even comparing it to the first film, the Avengers, like the first movie, I still feel that Age of Ultron did way better. So I'm gonna give you guys my ideas on this film. So once again, take it with a pinch of salt, have fun discussing, and try not to get pissed off about, whatever that is that you're not satisfied with, because honestly, none of us can change what has happened and what will happen with the MCU. We're all here having some good fun trying to understand what makes a good film. And at the end of the day, every person has something that, that's to their liking that not everyone can understand. And we just have to accept it for the way it is. We can't really say that, no, you have to enjoy what I'm enjoying. If it tastes good for me, it's gonna taste good for you. No, that's the wrong way to approach it. So anyway, let's just go ahead and have a look at some of the scenes. So the very first scene, of course, we see the Avengers coming into raid a what is this, Hydra base, and as usual, you see the Avengers murdering a bunch of people. Not just a bunch, quite a lot of people apparently get killed in this scene, and they don't really talk about it. Like the Avengers are clearly soldiers, and at this point, killing for them, especially killing Hydra soldiers, is nothing new. So, since the events of the first film, here we kind of establish that the team are working as a team, and they're raiding Hydra bases. They're trying to find what Hydra is up to, trying to shut down their operations. Then we get this really cool shot, one of the best shots like to this date in any superhero film that like kind of captures as many heroes as you can in a single shot, doing whatever they are best at. Now, of course, that I think is a slightly better frame from the one that I took, but I just went ahead and took what I could because, in the end, I'm probably going to be facing a lot of possible copy strikes pretty soon. So let's just have fun while we can before those idiots come along. All right. So yeah, we get to see Jarvis actually using his satellite technology. So they show a satellite of Jarvis in space. It's an Iron Man's satellite, and Jarvis scans down the Hydra base, detects that there's a force field. It requires Iron Man to kind of find a way to breach the force field and get it. So this is very interesting because we see that Iron Man is not just him and his suit of armor. He is like the leader of the technology in the Avengers. So we see that he has established a satellite with a very powerful AI, which is Jarvis, and Jarvis is kind of overlooking the Earth and assisting them from an aerial view to run their operations. We got none of this in Endgame. We got none of this in the first Avengers. We didn't even get this in Infinity War, to be honest. So we get to see kind of Iron Man's global presence, which means he's not just there when he's in the suit, he's actually always there because he has a super powerful AI such as Jarvis watching. And this entire film was basically about him trying to create another super powerful AI to take over his role of babysitting Jarvis. He wanted to create this program called Ultron, which he believes would be the way to kind of, step forward in security and technology. And then we get this scene where you see kind of Iron Man using like his self-built like machines to kind of go around the population of the world and kind of assess the situation, tell people to calm down. They probably can speak multiple languages. They will be fine doing an overtime job. They're not going to complain. So this AI is kind of all Iron Man, which kind of gives you a better sense of that character's presence. So this is what I was telling about. This is what we never got in Endgame. We never got in most of the films actually. So this is a really nice movie to show off Iron Man's true kind of power, because this is what it is. It's not blasters, it's not the laser beams, it's the intelligence, the technology, and that's what makes him special. And then we get this little scene. So this was the first time we actually saw Hulk interacting with someone in a kind of non-hostile manner. Because in the Avengers, clearly he starts off with a pissed off state and he just tries to kill everyone. And then the second time we see him, he's rampaging, fighting off the Chitauri together with Thor. So this is the first time we actually see a scene where he's like trying to turn back into Banner's form. So Widow has apparently found a way to kind of calm down the Hulk. She says sun's getting low, and then the Hulk slowly turns back. So this is where we kind of see the beginning of the relationship between Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff. Then we get this scene, the introduction of two new characters, something that we never really got in the films to come, because the films after that, of course, they all had like individual movies. So Infinity War introduced to us Thanos, which was a villain, and then Thanos' Black Order, which were several villains who we never really got to know details of. We just knew that, oh, okay, so Ebony Maw is apparently smart. Oh, okay, Corvus Glaive is apparently a little bit shady. And what's her name? Proxima just throws a spear, which apparently can be beaten by Captain America and Okoye. Just stuff like that. It's just really lame kind of character, development. In this film, we see the twins, so clearly they seem to be like they're raring to go for a fight, and then they're trying to figure out who they are. At the same time, they feel that Hydra is home because they were raised apparently maybe in a more humane manner than they would have. And for them, Stark is the enemy because they tell the story of how Stark's weapons apparently, I don't know exactly how long, but since it's considered they were kids, it probably happened like way before he was Iron Man. So Stark's weapons also affected them in the calamity, where Stark's weapons were actually being misused by weapons dealers. We saw this in the first Iron Man film. So these were some of the kids who got affected, and now they're grown up and they want revenge. And then this particular scene is the time when Scarlet Witch apparently uses her psychic abilities, like her mental abilities, telepathic, to kind of corrupt Iron Man's mind. And this was the only real film we got to see the most of this. This is the film where they established the Scarlet Witch's character and they showed how powerful her mental abilities are. Beyond this, we never see her developing any telepathic abilities. We never see her trying to use it to control anyone's minds or change their personality. Nothing. We never see any of that. We just see her telekinetic abilities, which is the ability to move things with your mind. So here she corrupts Stark's brain, and then Stark kind of sort of reveals his darker self. And then, Quicksilver is like, he wants to go in and probably bash Stark up, and she's like, no, don't. This is like the perfect domino effect. Let it happen. Stark's going to do something really evil. So this is where we kind of understand a little bit deeper into the superheroes' minds, where they're not all good. There is a darker part to oneself. And then when Scarlet Witch, there's another scene where she corrupts everyone. I don't think I have that exact shot, but when she corrupts everyone's minds, she gets into Captain America's as well, and then Tony kind of questions him like, "Oh yeah, they'll be chopping some wood, I think." I have that scene, so I'll just get it off out of the way anyway. So Tony tells him like, I don't trust the guy without a dark side." So he tells that to Cap. So this kinds of actually makes the viewers reflect more on what these heroes actually are. At the end, they are still humans, they are still ordinary people with special abilities trying to do the right thing. And regardless of how powerful their abilities are, it doesn't make them any better than the human being, that they actually are. So the good part is all human. The good and the bad is all just them. The powers are just a layer added to them. A little slip and you could be a villain, a little slip and you're a superhero. That's just the difference. And then we come to this scene where Stark and Banner are actually using their combined geniuses to try to develop a super powerful AI to take over the responsibilities of Jarvis. So they realize that Loki's staff, which is containing the Mind Stone, apparently has a schematic for a much more versatile AI, which was the Ultron program that they plan to create. So you actually get to see the two of them working together, figuring things out. I heard this absolutely ridiculous plot convenient answers from in Endgame where Thanos and his team manages to come to the future, right, using the ship with a single vial of Pym particles. So apparently we have to understand that Ebony Maw and Thanos are all geniuses, so they could easily replicate the Pym particles, and that's how they do it. No, that's not how we're gonna agree to that. You have to like at least give us a hint, like say that Abrimon just says, no problem, Master, I could replicate this in no time, or Thanos tells him, start the replication procedure, or you actually show the two of them trying to figure out how Pym particles work. That's what proves they are genius. Because for us, we are the common folk. We don't really understand the terms that they use, half of which are just jargons that don't really make sense. To some extent, perhaps the physics is possible, but I mean, come on, you're using a stone, which is what an infinity stone, which we have no real proof of even existing. We have no idea what it is or how it works. They are literally using an infinity stone, which they believe is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and they're creating an AI. Like, tell me in which planet that we know of where there's a physics to explain this thing. We don't. This is all purely fiction. So, giving us a representation of this by even a single scene, just a 5-second scene of a simple dialogue saying you can replicate this, right? Or you can do this, right? And then the other guy like, yep, of course, I'm a genius, or something like that. That tells you exactly what the character is capable of. So in this scene, we see this being put to work. They're working together. They've been doing hours of studies. Um, we don't know exactly how long, but of course, the fact that they are here in this time and they're so comfortable working through this, like discussing about it and all that, means that they have put time and thought into it, and that's what we need. In this film, we see a little bit of how can I put it, comic relief and some relaxation, where the Avengers are actually shown that they are human, they are chilling out. So we get more of this in Age of Ultron than any other Avengers film. This was the only film where they kind of show us how human the Avengers actually are, how they know how to have fun, they have a darker side. Yet, despite all of that, when it comes down to business, they know how to fight, they know how to save the world. And that was something the Age of Ultron really brought to us that no other films did. And we actually have shots of the Avengers saving people in this film more than any other film. So, of course, I mean, it doesn't have to be about that. But I mean, superheroes are all about saving people. So it doesn't have to be 50% of that. But the fact that they had that in this film, together with every other element, just shows you how amazing this film actually was. So yeah, some comic relief here. They're trying to team up. They're having a chit chat. They're having a fun time. These are things that this is the right time for comic relief, like the actual appropriate time when everyone can understand, oh, these guys are having fun, the jokes are good, and then the pace kind of lets you settle in, relax. Oh, okay, so these are what these people are doing. You see Natasha flirting with Banner, you see Thor kind of panicking when Cap tries to take the hammer. So you see all of these little cute little scenes, and then it slowly escalates, right, to the part when Ultron appears. So when Ultron appears, it's not a immediate boom clash or like, oh, instantly everyone is like pointing their guns at Ultron. No, everyone's like figuring out what on earth is this? Like they don't know what's happening. And then as Ultron gives out his dialogues, we realize that there's something seriously wrong with this machine, and that's how Tony realizes that Ultron, is real, and he has like kind of realized his form, and he has come here, and he's trying to wonder what happened to Jarvis. So, Ultron says, "In the flesh," or or no, not yet, not this, chrysalis, but I'm ready. I'm on a mission. Then Black Widow asks, "What mission?" And then Ultron says, "Peace in our time." So Ultron's concept in this film is is rather twisted, dark, yet it makes sense. So everyone is praising Thanos, right? Because clearly Thanos is more relatable because he looks human. Like he has the face of a human being. Of course, he has a terrifying chin, and he's purple, like a prune. But regardless, the reason we can relate easier to Thanos is because he's more human-like. Whereas Ultron, the moment we understand that Ultron is a machine, it's difficult to relate to. And that's kind of the reason why a lot of people didn't get what Ultron was doing. Or rather, that's what I feel. I feel that it's definitely easier to relate to a more humanoid person or figure than a more electronic or cyborg or robot ish figure. It's usually the case. So Ultron says something like, "Do you see it? The beauty of it, the inevitability. You rise only to fall." When when he's preparing the entire is it Sokovia, the state that he flies into the air to kind of crash it back into the ground. Hang on, let me just get the name. Age of Ultron, floating city. So let's see. Yes, Sokovia. That's the name of the city. So correct. So yeah, you kind of see Sokovia floating, and then Ultron is delivering these dialogues, which actually make so much sense in the way he says it, because he believes that the reason mankind doesn't evolve is because we haven't had a reset in a long time. And what he means by reset, he's talking about is destruction, absolute destruction. He uses the dinosaurs as a reference, which is really freaky, by the way, and uses earlier civilizations as a reference, saying that a lot of times mankind have fallen only to rise again stronger, and therefore he believes that uh, destroying mankind this time will allow us to evolve even further, and he believes that he should be the root, or rather the seed for this evolution, which is an advanced race of people probably created by Ultron himself. So here we see Ultron standing tall, finally, in like a fully formed metallic body, standing in the presence of the Scarlet Witch and the Quicksilver, and those two are clearly trying to understand what on earth is happening, but at the same time they are agreeing to the form of salvation that they received in order to get their revenge on Stark. And now, with Scarlet Witch having understood Stark's mind even better, it kind of justifies her perception of Stark. She felt that he was evil, and after looking at his mind, she realizes just how evil he could have been. So, of course, the way she messes with his mind could have been like, it's relative because we don't understand how she um, actually perceives it. We are not shown that in any way. And at the same time, Stark is a genius to a point where his mind could be so complex that the Scarlet Witch just wouldn't be able to understand it. So maybe his dark side was a very small percentage, but for her, maybe it felt overwhelming. So that could be a possibility. And I mean, Stark clearly has photographic memory. Let's not even question that. So he has a lot of things in his head. We see in this scene Ultron intimidating Ulysses Claw, who clearly has been shipping vibranium in and out of Wakanda. So this is the first film that kind of establishes the existence of Wakanda as a state which has vibranium. And we see Ulysses Claw, who we don't fully get to get to know about until the Black Panther film. But in this film, they show him as quite a presence because he speaks to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver saying, "Is this your first time intimidating someone? I'm afraid that I'm not that afraid." And the Scarlet Witch says, "Everybody is afraid of something." And he says, "Cuttlefish, deep sea fish, they make lights, disco lights to hypnotize their prey." And then boom. Then he says, "I saw a documentary, it was terrifying. So if you're going to fiddle with my brain and make me see a giant cuttlefish, then I know you don't do business. And I know you're not in charge, and I only deal with the man in charge." And then Ultron just walks in and says, "There's no man in charge. Let's talk business." So this is cool. This is the appropriate exchange of dialogues. We didn't get this in Endgame. When Thanos appears towards the end in the fight, this is clearly not the Thanos that we got in Infinity War. And he says that, after all your failures, look where it has brought you back to me. It's like, I mean, you're not that Thanos. You're a Thanos from the past, and behaving like you were the one who managed to achieve all the stones and win the war. It's not done yet. He's talking as though he already won it when he hasn't. He clearly hasn't. And this time jump that he has made to the future is totally different from his existing like the actual time he actually won. So he has now jumped to another point in time where he hasn't won. So this Thanos hasn't done anything yet to prove himself. And behaving like he has already defeated the Avengers, and now jumping into another timeline, it completely doesn't make sense because in his timeline he has failed. So these two are separate realities, and the fact that they're trying to make it seem like it's the same reality is just really dumb, and it doesn't make sense in their plot. And also, the past cannot change the future. Okay, anyway, I don't want to go back to that. It's just a mess. Let's proceed. This is a really cool scene where Iron Man pursues after Ultron, after the little fight within the kind of warehouse-like area. It's in the ship, right? So the fights were all cool. You see Quicksilver trying to grab Thor's hammer. You see Scarlet Witch hypnotize everyone. You see Hawkeye defeating Scarlet Witch because he's like really alert, and he's so alert, especially after the first time getting like hypnotized by Loki. So he's like done with this. I'm done with the whole mind control team. Just jabs Scarlet Witch in the head with like electro arrow or something. Then you see Thor saying like, "But I am high and mighty," and everything just changes. So you see the way they took that little scene, they're not making fun of Thor just yet. And it's not a funny scene where you see Thor on his ass or something. It's just a scene that allows you to chuckle a little bit, but also realize that Thor is now in trouble. So that dosage of comic relief during the fight scene was, I felt, very appropriate, considering the dark tone that they're setting the film to be. The fact that we are realizing that every one of these Avengers are broken deep down, especially Widow. If you see Widow's past, it's really dark. So the fact that they're broken deep down and they're just barely hanging in there is only shown in this unique scene. And the one who helped them realize that is the Scarlet Witch. And as much as she appears to be the enemy, she has actually done the entire Avengers team a favor because now they get to like face their dark side. They get to realize the problems that they have. And then we get one of the best fight scenes in all of the MCU, which is the Hulkbuster Iron Man controlled by Tony Stark, going up against the Incredible Hulk, who is the Hulk that we deserve. The freaking angry Hulk who's lost his shit, who just can't get it together, who's just going berserk, rampaging, and then this monstrosity of a machine is built, designed to take on the Hulk, goes after him. This fight scene was amazing. You get to see like the strengths and weaknesses of the Hulk and the Hulkbuster, and then you get to see a little bit of Tony Stark's genius coming into play, where he's trying to like calculate where people are trying to get them out of like Hulk's like the harm's way of the Hulk, and then trying to find a place to like kind of crash land the Hulk later on and then knock him out. This is really cool and a very decent fight scene that we got. And then we go to the part where the Avengers are all kind of broken apart, fallen, like weakened out and softened up. And then they go to a doctor who kind of helps to patch up everyone. I think that happens slightly before. But what happens after is Hawkeye actually takes all of them to go and see his family, which is like in a little wooden hut. And this was one of the coolest scenes in all of the MCU because we finally see a superhero who actually has a family. So it makes Hawkeye kind of the most successful superhero as a human being because he has a family, he has kids, he's a responsible dad, he fights for the sake of the world, he tries to spend time with his family, but he knows he has to balance all of this and he's trying to do the right thing. This was the film that made everyone start to love Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye. Because Jeremy Renner, of course, he's charismatic, he's a cool guy. But now he gets to be even cooler with this kind of a role. And this was really nice, really fun to see. And even those little moments we got between Tony and Pepper realizing they have a child. Now this was a rare thing in the comics. The Iron Man barely never had any children. I mean, I could have missed out one or two comics, but yeah, he never really had any children. And then that was a really nice emotional touch because that makes us feel even more for the characters realizing that they have something to lose finally. Like Thor keeps losing everything, and then Thor comes to a seat where he says that he has nothing left to lose. So you see these different perspectives of fighters. One guy who has everything to lose, and the other guy who has nothing left to lose, and they both fight terrifyingly well. So it's just a really nice touch to the film. And then Hawkeye, he got his like his abdomen kind of patched up by this geneticist. I forgot her name. She's a doctor, really powerful geneticist. And then the wife kind of hugs him and tells him that I can still tell the difference. So this is another little dialogue that didn't need to be added. It's almost meaningless, but for those of you who have spent time with a significant someone, you'll understand this makes absolutely perfect sense. Because the other person knows you so well to the point that they're saying that even advanced genetics can't cover the fact that you had a wound and your wife can tell the difference. That was really nice. This is a personally wonderful thing to have. And then we see Banner and Natasha Romanoff starting to get familiar with each other. They're both realizing that they're both monsters, and she tells him that she's no better, she's a monster herself. And then they both realize that they both can't have children, and was a high chance that they would decide to run away, and they are clearly in love. So this was the love that I thought that they would get back to within the 5 year jump time, like the frame of time that they jumped from the first scene of Endgame to, like, the 5 years later part. I thought they would come back together, like they would finally work together to reform Shield, to like help everyone, help the people. Because Tony is busy with his family. Everyone else is helping out. And Banner becomes Professor Hulk, but to what avail? Like he never did anything with it. Whereas in this film, you can see these two characters kind of bonding together, wanting to make a step, wanting to do more than this, and they really killed it after this film. I don't know whether they found it not very appropriate for children. Maybe Ultron doesn't really sell toys, because I felt that's kind of the route they went with. That's why they went to, like, more colorful characters like Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel sells easily. I mean, Black Widow is just what, a girl in a black suit. Captain Marvel's got like what, three, four colors, and then she's got like blazing, colorful blasters and stuff. You can do all kinds of toys with that, and it's really sad to see that that may have actually been their reason for kind of dumping this notion that they had here, this relationship, and then killing off Black Widow in the later film. But they apparently said they're going to have another Black Widow movie. I don't know whether it's just for fans or how they're going to move it. Maybe they're going to bring some new characters into that and establish them. But I really hope they do her justice, because I felt they did not do the character justice in Endgame. Her death was really fast, no proper funeral or send off, nothing from Shield, nothing like that. And then we see this scene where they're chopping wood outside the house, and while the couple's like getting to know each other and stuff, these two guys are just like ranting it out about the failures that they had. And yeah, this is kind of the point in time where Tony says, "I don't trust the guy without a dark side." Then he goes on to help Hawkeye's wife with the tractor, I think, and he bumps into Fury at that time. But yeah, this was a nice scene as well. We get to see Cap like rip off a log in half, and we get to see Robert Downey Jr.'s face like kind of realize the intimidating presence Captain America holds. And yet, they're just having a chat and trying to figure out things. And then, oh yeah, this is another little nice touch, which was while Hawkeye was with his wife in the house, like watching these two guys, chop wood apart, they were discussing how these two guys are like literal gods among men, and how Hawkeye has to like keep up with them. And despite all that, Hawkeye held his own against Wanda, and he proves to be an asset. And this is how they kind of balanced out Hawkeye's role in the Avengers, which is a really nice touch, a touch that we never got to see much of after that, because of course he lost his family, unfortunate, but they didn't include him in Infinity War, which was, it didn't really make sense. And then, the regret that he didn't join them. I mean, it's a global scale calamity. I understand that you're retired or whatever, but if the planet's going to end anyway, I mean, you should give one last fight. That's probably the most like logical thing to do. And then we get to see this, and sorry, it's a little bit blurry, but I didn't really, there's not really many details here to worry about. The main thing I want you guys to look at is the fact that Black Widow gets like launched out of this flying plane that's being flown by Hawkeye. And she gets onto a motorbike which speeds off to assist Captain America. So this is a very nice scene because we get to see these people, these Avengers who are not superhuman, use gadgets to their advantage to establish their powers. So Widow's using a motorbike, a speed bike, to kind of keep up with Cap, who's fighting Ultron. She takes on, I think, one of the goons or something later on. Then Hawkeye, being Hawkeye, takes the high ground with the flight that he has. Something once again we didn't get in Endgame. Apparently, he's just running around on the ground. So my idea was um, that I read this actually from someone else. I can't remember his name. Sorry, I can't credit him. But if you are there, if you're listening, this credit goes to you. Your idea was to put Hawkeye atop the shoulder of Ant-Man during Endgame, so that establishes his aerial presence while being able to move around the battlefield. So Ant-Man kind of carries Hawkeye throughout the battlefield while Hawkeye is just perched on his shoulder, which was a really cool idea. They should have done something like that. Or Hawkeye hops into Rocket's ship because Rocket's a good pilot, and then Rocket flies around and Hawkeye uses his aerial presence. So we didn't get to see that in any other films. This was the only film we got that. And then here, what happens is Ultron finally escapes to like a train, which he kind of stirs out of control. And then he bolts for it, and then Cap has to turn around and ask for help from the Maximoffs who have come to kind of aid him to take on Ultron. So he's like now Captain America is completely at the mercy of the Maximoffs because he clearly doesn't know them well enough. He just met them, but for them, I mean, Cap, he has to take a gamble where he has to request them for help. This was a gamble that he had no other choice to do because Cap clearly cannot stop the train, and they clearly don't have anyone else right now who is capable of helping them. They don't have the Hulk, no Iron Man, no Thor. So Cap had to handle this together with Black Widow and Hawkeye, who clearly can't stop the train. And Black Widow is going after the new body of Ultron, I believe, and Hawkeye is assisting her. So the only help he gets is from Quicksilver and Wanda, who, for them, getting asked for help from like Captain America, this is their chance to like prove themselves. And this is where you realize that they're just two kids who had a very bad childhood, who are just trying to figure their place in this world because they're not ordinary people clearly. So Captain America's question and the situation they're in kind of kicks into their adrenaline, and then Quicksilver is seen bolting across the streets, saving countless lives, while Wanda tries to slow down the train and saves even more lives. So this was really nice. People just like the Avengers just teaming up and saving people, and Cap kind of acts as a human shield for the train's front of the train's body. So you get to see the Avengers straight up just saving people after people. And then I just want to skip forward to the Sokovia, and we see Quicksilver kind of bolting around, taking on Ultron enemies, and we see him kind of casually turn back at one of the police officers who accidentally fired at him, and he's like, like, come on, man, that kind of a gesture. And this is where they let us catch our breath. In the midst of all the action, they have these little cool scenes where they're not funny scenes, but they're cool. This is cool. This is not funny. This is not serious. This is not just action. This is cool. This is just somewhere in between, a perfect balance that shows you just how amazing a superhero is. And then we have even more like cooler scenes of Black Widow and Cap fighting Ultron soldiers, and then saving even more people, telling people to like get to safety, carrying the wounded, escorting them. And then finally we see like Shield's helicarrier coming to the rescue. And this was kind of salvation for the Avengers. Fury is once again back on track. And they are all back in a team trying to save humanity once again. And I know they like to like rip the Avengers apart and put them back together again and again. And despite them having done that in the first film, I felt they did it so much better in Age of Ultron, because in Age of Ultron, they had a very like solid way of separating the Avengers, which was Scarlet Witch. And then the very reason that separated them eventually came to join them and then help them out in what turns out to be what could have been one of the most vicious disasters of their time. And then we get to see even more cool shots of the Avengers actually fighting together. Now, of course, this is questionable because in like Infinity War and Endgame, we have too many Avengers to be shown. But I had another video which I made which suggested that you separate, the Avengers by groups and let them fight in their own teams. That kind of a thing. But still, they did have a lot of cool shots of the Avengers fighting together. But of course, too many for everyone to keep up, and maybe too little time for them to show more of that. I know, 3 hour film, not enough time. It's true. I don't mind watching a 4 hour film. Like the Lord of the Rings extended. I mean, I watch some Tamil movies, and to be honest, they're 3.5 hours, 3:45 sometimes. So you'd be surprised. So yeah. And then we see Ultron finally coming closer to his defeat. So before this, we see some cooler scenes where Thor is like, "Is that the best you got?" And then this like Cap's like, "You had to ask," something like that. And then we see Vision flying in and establishing himself as a presence against Ultron. And what Vision does, he holds on to Ultron's head and kind of kicks Ultron out of the framework of the internet. And then Ultron's like he's locked out of technology, so he's only got himself and the remaining droids that he has in the film. These are all that's left of Ultron. So it's kind of questionable why Ultron didn't just have an extra somewhere else away from the battlefield. But this kind of tells you that Ultron, in some sense, is still kind of human. Because what we are seeing here is overconfidence, a very human trait, a trait that an AI would possibly not have, because an AI will definitely create countermeasures and be extra careful. But this is a human error that we saw from Ultron, which was his overconfidence. He brought everything to the battlefield, thinking that he could have ended here and now. And this was the reason Ultron lost. So, of course, Ultron, before going down, he takes out Quicksilver in a very tragic death. And Quicksilver says this consistent dialogue that they had, which was, "You didn't see that coming." And it was a good way to send off the character. It was a good way to show his kind of love-hate relationship with Hawkeye, and the fact that Hawkeye kind of educated his sister to come into combat. Of course, Quicksilver doesn't know this, but it's significant for us as the viewers, the fact that uh, you know Hawkeye kind of helps out Wanda, and then now he helps out Hawkeye. So it's kind of a triangle where they actually all helped out each other. And whether they know it or not, we know it. And then you see the Hulk saving Black Widow. First of all, Hulk takes her into the fight, which is really cool. She kind of rides on his back, and he takes her into the fight. And then finally, he jumps back off the island to get Widow to safety. Once again, a nice little touch. So this was like right before Hulk kind of gets into Ultron's plane and beats Ultron out of the plane, which is the reason why Ultron couldn't escape. So Hulk kind of actually saved everyone. Hulk is the one who knocked Ultron out of his plane, and then Hulk gets into the plane and flies off into wherever later on that he ends up in Ragnarok. So watch Ragnarok for that. So yeah, that's that. And then we get to see Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch's raw, like anger and power, where she rips out Ultron's heart in this terrifying scene. You can see her eyes all like glowing red. Keep your eyes above her neck level, okay? I know what you guys are looking at. Probably should have found a better scene, but yeah. Anyway, so that happens, and then she tells like she threatens Ultron and she watches Ultron die in pain. So this is a really emotional scene because of Quicksilver's death, and we all felt it for him in this scene, and we all felt for Wanda. Losing your brother is not something easy to deal with. And then we see, Tony and Thor kind of plan to take out Sokovia, like completely take out Sokovia, after they have vacated the entire city-state. And then Iron Man kind of uses his kind of blasters and then ignites the vibranium that is in the center of the city. And then you see Thor kind of bring down rain of like lightning from the skies, like sheer power, he has as an Asgardian god. And then you see Vision flying in to like swoop Wanda off to safety. And this is kind of the beginning of Vision and Wanda's relationship, of which we didn't really get to see much of because we kind of skip into the middle of it in Infinity War. But nonetheless, this was the beginning, like when she kind of realizes that Vision is the one who came to save her. And maybe she decides to stick with him, and this is how they start chatting, how they start understanding each other. And then we see Thor's raw, destructive power as he starts to like obliterate the city. Um, and then we see Hulk. Yes, this is the part where he kind of flies off into the skies. And then the last scene, of course, is when Vision finally challenges Ultron, and then Ultron is upset the fact that they have taken Vision away from him. And Vision, he initially says that he doesn't want to kill Ultron because Ultron is unique, but because Ultron is against life and Vision is supporting life, Vision has to kill Ultron. And so he does it. He uses his the Mind Stone, the full brunt of it, and eradicates Ultron. So we also get to see a few other side characters who, although we saw them for a short period of time, which was the Doctor who creates Ultron's body, um, and they show her as a genius as well. I mean, perhaps they could have just used Banner for it, but they decided to introduce a kind of new character to allow her to kind of explore how adding new characters seems. So in this film, we got several new characters. Oh yeah, her name is Dr. Helen Cho in the movie. And I think she's significant in the comics as well. I'm not really sure about her though. So yeah, they introduced this the Scarlet Witch, the Quicksilver, the Doctor, and despite introducing several new characters and then giving them time to kind of establish themselves, they still had a fantastic film. A film that had a very good deal of action, cool scenes, comic relief, a little bit of exploring into the characters' backstory, their darker side, and all of that. It's clearly better than the first film. It's definitely better than Endgame. So for me, it's Infinity War at the top, and then Age of Ultron in second place right now. So of course, this is my personal opinion. You may think that the first one is better. You may think that Endgame was good. That's up to you. But this is what it is for me. And oh yeah, I didn't really have a score for this one. So let me just up this. Oh, I was using this for Endgame apparently. So let me just oh, I can't use it. Nah, you know what? I'll just delete that and just add a simple text here. And then say my rating for this film. Um, hmm, questionable, but yeah, I think I'll do it. Let me just up the size a little bit. OBS is funny that way. So yep, I'm gonna be rating Age of Ultron a 7 out of 10. And this was, of course, my rating from years ago, so I'm just kind of sticking to it. And I feel it's rightfully that. So perhaps in Infinity War was an 8 or 8.5. I don't think it's a 9 because it did have lacking of certain things, which was the establishing of the Black Order was really bad. Not really a fan of that. The reason of why Hulk kind of hid away was not really explained in the film. So it's really important that a film shows you the scenes because that's what a movie is about, what you see and what you hear. So we're not doing much reading on screen, it's mostly seeing and like showing to us and then playing music to us. So these are the two important things. So in this, like how they showed Banner and Tony working together, the geniuses all coming together. We never really got to see that in Thanos is an Ebony Moss genius in Endgame. There's no explanation as to how they could use the Pym particles, and then they gave like a very convenient answer for that. I mean, they're just trying to cover up their mistakes. It was a very bad movie for me. And now looking at it, I rated Endgame 5 out of 10. I probably should have given it lower. To be honest with you guys, I was afraid of the backlash that I would be receiving, but I'm really impressed with you guys because you guys actually proved to me that there are still people out there with decent taste to filmmaking. And of course, some of you felt that it should have got a lower rating, and you guys agree to my viewpoints of the plot holes and then the mistakes they made, the inconsistent character development, way out of character, like decisions. And I was really happy that you guys understand that. And that's what's important because I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. We need to make sure that bad films don't get covered up by 10 out of 10 ratings just because they're made by big industries like Disney. If it's a bad film, we have to establish that it's a bad film so that we get better ones. And Endgame was not just this. For a finale, someone said 14 films, so 14 films, a finale to 14 films, a four-part saga main film. Endgame was trash. So, well, I feel Age of Ultron is the second best Avengers film. Uh, you guys can go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I read all of them, or as rather as much as possible. And I will agree with you if you say that no, Age of Ultron is actually bad, or if Age of Ultron is actually good. It's fine. Just give me your ideas. I will do my best to understand it. And so yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Um, Take care.